complaints, and she'll tell you about how you can get the city to address an issue that you have, either contacting the city online through the website or simply dialing in for a phone number. And I think that there's actually the city website's been improved over the past year, and there's tremendous resources there. Not necessarily always easy to find, and we're working on that, but part of it is just conveying to the community where you can submit these complaints or inform us of these issues. So I'm going to have Kathy briefly talk, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Cassidy. Good morning. As the mayor said, I'm the community relations representative with the cities. I see some real familiar faces here. One of my functions, besides being staff support to the mayor and the city council, is sort of a funnel for folks with concerns about city issues or questions about a problem or just needing to find out some information. If I don't have the answer, I generally know where to send you to get the information. And as the mayor said, there are a couple of different ways of reporting issues to us, whether it be a pothole or a question about when is your street tree going to get trimmed or any general city issue. We have an electronic, it's called a Constituent Response Management System, CRM. We call it San Leandro Assist. It's on the city's website. You can find it in a couple of different places, but pretty much on any website you'll see a link that says Contact Us. That's the quickest way to find it. Go to Contact Us, and the first item there will be to report a problem or concern, San Leandro Assist, and then it gets you into a system where you register and then you tell us what the problem is and where the problem is, and then as it gets updated, you'll get automated notifications by the department that's addressing it to let you know that something's been addressed or looked into or resolved. Those of you that don't prefer to use online system, of course, the telephone works great. At these Coffee with the Mayor meetings, we always have these comment cards. If you have an issue or a question, feel free to fill it out and leave it with me or bring it back or send it back to the mayor's office some other time. And then we also provide these ready reference telephone cards. They have a lot of the basic telephone numbers for most of the city offices, including the 24-hour line for potholes and graffiti and abandoned shopping carts. But my phone number is on here also under community relations. So feel free to consider me as a point of contact for City Hall. If you don't know where else to call, feel free to start with me and I'll get you on your road. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I had my first experience dealing with the San Leandro Assist on after New Year's Eve when I hit a real nasty pothole at the corner of Estudillo and Bancroft coming home. It was like you couldn't even see it, and apparently it had opened up with the rains. And so I just put my request in, and it was handled, and real quick thereafter. We have a city road crew that is and I think, yes, it was the mayor asking, but I also don't think the procedure really was going to be that much different. I followed the procedure that everyone follows, and we have a city road crew that goes out and addresses potholes on a regular basis. So put it in when you see it. You can be the eyes and ears of City Hall. We want to be responsive to your issues. We want to communicate better. In part, one of the new initiatives is that we're now putting city council meetings, the audio file of the meeting, on the city website the next day. We started that. The goal is to ultimately have it video streaming so that you can watch the meeting from your house or come and watch it later on your computer. And that's it's just going to take a little time to develop a plan and identify the source of money for that. But it's my goal to see that happen, and hopefully it'll be a goal shared by the rest of the city council. Well, why don't we leave it at that? But I'm interested in terms of just your questions, but also if you have comments about how the city communicates, how the city can communicate better with the community. That's one of the responsibilities I have as mayor, and I want to see that we're constantly evaluating how we're doing and constantly engage in the process in improving our communications. Now, so I'm new, so how do we, is there a way that we ask questions in any order? Okay, I'll start on this side, and who's got a question? Susan.
Mayor Cassidy, it really is a question. The recycling center on Safeway on Dutton, I would like to know how it will about finding out what it is? Is it city subsidized? Is it rented out? Is it permitted? And the reason for the question, this has been building for a long time. In Estadale Estates, the amount of people who are going through our recycle, despite the label, and despite some of my neighbors confronting them, which is not always the safest thing to do, seems directly, that is a drop-off point. No one, I've lived on Lee Avenue since 1980, I do not see my neighbors taking their recycling there. So I want to know just the basic facts. Does the city have anything to do with it? Does Safeway, and I can call Safeway the Community Relations Department, but where do I start?
Okay, do you want to?
Thank you, and that's a very good question. It's been a concern of the neighborhoods for a number of years. Let me give you some of the basic facts. There's state law, because of the California redemption fee that we all pay when we buy a can of soda or a bottle of soda or a bottle of water, that says that there have to be recycling facilities within a half-a-mile distance of any major retailer that sells those products. So a grocery store would be considered a major retailer. 7-Eleven wouldn't, but a grocery store would be because of the volume. Has to be within a half a mile. If there isn't one within half a mile, it has to be inside the store. And the store has to, remember when we were kids, we'd bring the can, or the bottles, bottles back and get our nickels back and so forth. The stores would have to resume that practice.
So Kathy, it's the only one in a residential neighborhood in all of San Leandro.
And I understand that. The other one that is located in San Leandro is next to Pack and Save, down on Chapman Road, which is right next to a residential neighborhood. It happens to be a commercial area. But because of the distance of the other stores, this location is within half a mile of the downtown Safeway.
No, it's not.
There is no space in the downtown Safeway for it. So this is where it's been located for some time. We're working with Next Cycle, which is the company that owns or provides the service. And no, the city is not involved in it other than providing a use permit on the site for them to have it there.
Does the property belong to Safeway?
Yes, that property belongs to
So
Safeway.
Safeway has to give their permission, right?
Yes, they do. But they also need the service. Otherwise, they would have to have it inside the store by state law. We're working with the state office as well to see if there is another way to do this. Right now, Next Cycle is talking to, what is the grocery store but at on Durant? Save Max? Is that Save Max up there?
The one in Oakland?
Yes, the one in Oakland.
Food Max.
Food Max. Talking with Food Max to see if they will accept it. That is more than half a mile from the downtown Safeway. But the state may be willing to waive a short distance of requirement in order for both Safeways to be covered by that, if that store is willing to accept it. If not, and if that recycling center goes away, the store has to do it inside the store, as well as the downtown Safeway has to start it up inside the store again, and they don't want to do that, just because of the logistics and the cleanliness and so forth. So we're trying to resolve it. As I said, they do have to have a use permit with the city. As long as they maintain the site under the city's conditions, which is clean and without debris left over once it's closed. Of course, there's going to be debris there when there are people coming and going, but once it's closed, if they keep it in a clean condition, they're meeting the conditions of the city's requirements.
So what's happening? They're going through our recycle, and
understand
they're exactly going up. I follow them. I mean, I don't follow them, but I mean.
We know that.
I'll stay in contact with Kathy on this. Thank you for reporting. Thank you for the efforts that you're taking. And it's something, yeah, it's a concern in Estadale Estates, it's a concern in the Broadmoor and probably other neighborhoods. And it's, just feel free to continue to contact us on it, but we'll also get back to you, Susan, and update.
I'm sorry, Susan.
It's Susan Young. And you know, one thing too is, though I have noticed that I take BART almost every day to downtown San Francisco to work, and sometimes there's like folks that come on with a bike and like a huge, you know, plastic bag of all the recyclables that they've taken here. So I'm sure there is a conduit from people taking out of the trash cans in the neighborhood. but there are also folks that are coming into our city that aren't necessarily taking it to that recycling center too. Okay, all right, come on over to this side. Does anyone have a question over here? Yes, I'll give you the microphone for the question.
This one, Mr. Mayor, I'm as new as you are.
Okay.
Well, my question is a little bit more on the macro side. As we know, we're in desperate times financially, and every city across the state is doing, across the country, are doing audacious moves to check in their revenue. Now, I look at the city of St. Carlos, and if you know that name, you'll know where I'm going with this conversation. They took to the great move, their mayor, of outsourcing the police department. Now, it's a serious move, so serious many cities are thinking about it. Even though St. Carlos is a much smaller municipality than this one, then you move to Cincinnati and they're in the same quagmire. It's a huge city, huge deficits, and because of the unsustainability of pensions, both fire and police, they looked at this very seriously. There's a Mayor Mallory out there contesting it, and he's taking a lot of heat for it in Cincinnati. But it should be looked at, and you need to see what can be done, because there's no move because of the unions on this one way or the other. It's a push, shove, layoff, or cut back, and all, there we go. Now the big question was, from your predecessor, what would I do with all those police officers? They're my friends. My question was, most of them would be hired by the Sheriff's Department, and which is the move that happened with St. Carlos. And St. Carlos somehow worked it that they were still able to maintain the police chief as a sheriff's captain in the department for the city of St. Carlos. So there's many ways around this. Also, these are just suggestions, as this is what you wanted, or advertised. The other one would be, my big question is, why do we have two city managers? One's an assistant and one's a city manager. That city manager was brought in because they were good with numbers. But my question is, isn't that what the city manager was supposed to be? And if this person is so good with numbers, maybe that's the person we should have. But we can't sustain double employment. I was looking at this on the web just yesterday, and it just covers the employment figures of '09, so it's dated. The city's the biggest hirer of employees in the city, which means the private sector is sitting out there to the tune of 54.28%. The city employs people. That's a horrendous number, and the school district is the largest. I know you're an advocate or former school person, so which brings me to every time they have a deficit, and you know this at the school district, because of your background, up comes a bond. The $50 million bond just passed. For my God's sake, as your school people said yesterday in the paper. Why did we need another school? My big question was, why did we need to build a swim pool and a football field in these times? There's a lot of seniors in this town, and they cannot afford to be taxed. Another 0.25% on sales tax. Somebody needs a widescreen TV down to Hayward, they'll buy it, and they'll, whatever big ticket item. These are realistic suggestions, and they should be taken into consideration. Thank you, Mayor, for your time.
Okay, what's your name?
Jim Bean.
Jim, okay. Well, thanks, Jim. You covered a wide range of topics there, and you hit me with a tough one right up front with the question of outsourcing the police department to the Alameda County Sheriff's Department, I guess is. And I think, that is I appreciate what San Carlos is doing. It's also, it has happened here in Alameda County. The city of Dublin's police department is actually staffed by the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. Since the city of Dublin on it, the folks that are behind the wheel are part of the Alameda County Sheriffs. It is a controversial topic, and I think though, as we look at the city budget as we're going forward, it's not a position that I advocate presently, but it is a question that needs to be asked, and it's a topic that needs to be under consideration in terms of what would the financials be if, just at a preliminary level, would it actually result in savings for the city? I mean, that's my position. I'd like to know the answer, because that then triggers follow-up questions. But again, though, I'm not advocating that we transform our police department or turn it over to the Alameda County Sheriffs. I am open to engaging in the inquiry, though, of what the costs would be, and then see the outcome of that question. What are the ramifications? I do note that the issue of consolidation of emergency services is something that San Leandro is not unfamiliar with. We used to have our own fire department, and in the, I guess the early part of last decade now, it was consolidated with the Alameda County Fire Department. And we have achieved cost savings by doing that, in part because we were able to go to one less fire company, but yet have the same services because we combined services with the fire company over in San Lorenzo. And that works, and has worked very well.
Which is county.
Which is county, yes. And but there's a question as to would that model work equally well on the police side as it does on the fire service side?
Well, San Carlos figured out that would save $2 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in terms of city manager staffing, I'll just say I note your statement, but I can't really talk about personnel.
Okay.
I note that you're talking about sort of staffing and issues as to.
No, I just brought this purely for you. No,
Okay.
No quite answer response necessary.
Okay. On the school bond measures, and some of the students said, "Oh, why are we having this stupid?" What the report didn't include was that they wanted to know why we didn't build it for the seniors. Because I was talking to a class of juniors. They were, they didn't like the fact that we were giving resources to freshman students. They bought the idea that we needed to reduce the overcrowding, and they really would have been favoring if it was given to the seniors. Which I said to them, the reason why is the freshman class is the largest, it's about 700 students, so if you're going to reduce the overcrowding, that's where it makes sense. But, this is hard because it's, until I got much more involved in civic issues a number of years ago, I didn't understand that the city and the school district are two separate political entities. Separate leadership, separate funding sources. The schools get their operational funds almost 90% through the state of California. And so when the state budget goes into the tank, school districts are affected across the state. I mean, about 40% of the state budget is given to K through 12 public education. However, that's to operate the schools. That's operational revenue. The state does not give money to the schools for capital expenditures, the major improvements that are needed, whether it's putting on new roofs or building new school sites or modernization. The only way you get money for that basically is through local bond measures, which then do sometimes allow you to get matching state funds through state bonds that have been issued. And so that's a sad reality. Yeah, when Measure B, which was the bond that created the new 9th grade campus, was passed, that was 2006. The economy was going pretty well then, or a heck of a lot better than it is now. Yet it takes a number of years to, get the bond, get the designs approved, and the construction, and so things come on 4 years down the road, and then the economy is completely changed, and it looks like the district is wasting its money spending it on new buildings when they don't have enough for the programs. But it's this dichotomy between capital expenditures and operating revenue and where the funding sources are. You have one?
Yeah, I was just going to say really quickly, doesn't the city plan for rainy days and put a slush fund instead of when the spike is up, the living high, like the roaring 90s, again and again and again?
Well, the city did have a reserve fund, and still has a reserve fund. It's just, it's been drained extensively. It was up to about $20 million, and the city's general fund got up to about $80 million. But what's happened over the past 4 years is that it's been tapped into, and then other funds have been tapped into, and then things that the city used to spend money on, such as road repair and road upgrading, out of the general fund aren't being spent. So it's, it's down to $1 million, maybe a little bit more than $1 million, but the numbers do change and there'll be a Finance Committee meeting on January 14th, which you're all welcome to at 8:15 here, and we're going to get a further budget update. That is a goal that I want to see occur, is to rebuild the reserve fund. At the same time, taking into account the pressing needs that we have. You know, if the economy comes back rip-roaring, well, then you could do, you know, you can take care of the needs and you can build the reserve fund up aggressively as well. I assume, and I think what we have to plan on is that we're in a time of stagnant to declining revenue for municipalities for at least the next few years. And we have to be, you know, watch every penny and be as prudent as possible in our spending. But let me go, I'll come back here to the center.
My name is Bob Mercer, and
With the microphone.
my name is Bob Mercer, and I'd like to hit an administrative thing first. The advertisement for this meeting said 8:30 to 9:30, so if we can only go to 9:15, that might be something that we clarify in the future.
That's my fault. We'll go to 9:30 then.
Okay. Second of all, I think there's, in regard to financing in the city, when there is a surplus, people just kind of go on and don't really, I don't think, pay as much attention to it. But once you say there's not enough funds for something, the people begin to focus on what's going on. So whether it's from a macro point of view or you know, a micro point of view, you start focusing. So as I drive down the street and I see that they're putting palm trees along Bancroft Avenue, you say, well, see, I know palm trees are pretty expensive, and we say, okay, wait a minute, the city has a program where they bring in trees to neighborhoods and will plant them. Now, they used to dig up the sidewalk and put them in there, now they just provide the trees because of lack of funding. You say, okay, if we have those trees available, why are we spending thousands of dollars for palm trees that are going up when we deal with the county coming in and telling us we have to cut out the eucalyptus in the river, the stream way, and part of that is because they're not native. So what I'm kind of getting to is the perception is as important as the reality, and to spend that kind of money on such things as palm trees.
Mr. Mayor, can I add to something you just said?
Sure.
I'm sorry, my name's Martin. My name's Martin, and I'm a longtime resident, grew up here in San Leandro, moved away part of my life and came back. And it's frustrating to see the city spend the money it has to do exactly what he was talking about, and to see these monuments literally come back up, and the city having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to redo something that they took down just a few years ago. It's frustrating and it's irritating, and to go on another topic real quick, is there anything being done to help keep the businesses in the city to alleviate some of the tax dollars that the residents have to pay, and keep our residents employed?
Thank you both for your comments. I'll have to get back to you on where the funding came for the, I think it's like the south part of East 14th where they're putting in the palm trees.
It's right down, well, the latest ones are right down by the school addition on 14th.
Okay, but on East 14th, yeah. What I would suspect is that that was a source of funds, like from the county for road improvements, separate from the city general fund. And so what happens is, you know, take a look at the soundproofing on 580. I mean, that was like approved years and years ago, and they finally got like the funds open for it, and it finally got done. And you say, well, why are we putting soundproofing in the middle, you know, when we're laying off all these state workers and services are going down? It's just, you know, government moves at sometimes a glacial pace, and things are approved and funding is delayed or whatnot, and then it comes open and then projects go forward. But I'll get back to you specifically on that one. I agree that perception is critical, and And I think that's part of the communications challenge that all government agencies have, and now that I'm the mayor of San Leandro, it's the challenge that I have to accept and work on for our city, because I think and it's something I'll be talking about as we move forward with respect to the website and other things, of perhaps having a mayor's blog on the website where I can talk about things and people can ask questions, or having a frequently asked question, and addressing some of these things of why are you spending money on this when we can't, why are we putting new palm trees on East 14th when you can't fix the potholes that are already there? And those are all valid questions, and we'll get back to you specifically on your one, but I think there's just a broader challenge. The city doesn't have a newsletter anymore. Do you want to say something?
The thing about the cost.
Okay, yeah, Robert, if you fill out one of these, we'll get back to you specifically.
The thing about the cost is not only the installation of that, but who's going to maintain it. So even though the county or the state or whoever might install it, if the responsibility for maintaining it relies or comes back to the city, then maybe the statement is, thank you, but no thank you. We'll put in these other trees which are lower maintenance, lower cost as far as watering, trimming, whatever. And forget that, even though the other trees are part of some prior. I mean, just because the money was allocated doesn't mean it has to be spent.
Okay. And then in terms of business development here in San Leandro and protecting businesses, that is a long-term solution to our economic woes. And I want to see the downtown thriving. I want to see our industrial district thriving. And we both need to, we need to make sure that businesses that are here feel supported, and that we have a retention program in place if some are looking elsewhere. I mean, you look at North Face going over to Alameda, it wasn't that Alameda offered anything extraordinary. I mean, it was relatively minor. Could the city have matched some of that? Part of their desire, though, was there was a property that had like a signature location that they were interested in too. So maybe the answer would have been no. But we need to be in there fighting to keep our businesses here and put our best foot forward. We also need to attract new businesses to town, and it's this is my first week on the job, but I've already met with the CEO of the largest private corporation in San Leandro, in terms of largest being defined as the amount of payroll to the employees. This one corporation has a larger payroll than any other business, and they're looking at expanding here in San Leandro, which is wonderful news, because that means they're also staying here in San Leandro. And how can the city facilitate that process? That's something I'm really interested in seeing occur. But the city, we have a strategic plan for economic development. It was generated when Ellen Corbett was mayor. There was a little bit of an update done in the mid-2000s. It's time to take a whole new look at that, and that's something I'd like to see occur this year, working with the chamber, working with labor organizations, of course the city staff, running it, and with the idea in mind that we look at San Leandro as it exists today, look at the broader economy, and figure out what type of businesses will work well here, what type of industries, and then be selective in our approach, and instead of maybe a scattershot, focus on a few, and try to create a new San Leandro. I mean, there are a lot of good things that are happening. The Kaiser development is significant. And if we keep San Leandro Hospital at the same time, I think we could become known as a hub of medical care in the East Bay. And if we have the possibility of, we still have a light industrial area in the center of a town. Well, not many areas in the Bay Area have that. It's underutilized. It was at one time more of a manufacturing area, and manufacturing has gone into a decline. But that doesn't mean, though, that we can't have manufacturing for the new century of software development, medical device research. We have a company called Environmental Recovery Systems, I'm probably mispronouncing it, ERI.
Energy recovery.
Energy recovery. They do manufacturing of desalinization products that are sold around the world. So it won't be producing cars, it won't be some of the old factories that San Leandro had. It will be smaller scale, but I am aggressively going to work on it. My number one priority, though, is I want to get the city budget balanced, and I want to develop a multi-year budget that makes sense. And that's my goal between now and June 30th, when the budget has to be adopted. That's my number one goal. My number two goal is to get more business, to retain business and get more business in here. And I am working on that, but I will take that into high gear after I get the first goal accomplished. Let me go around the room a little bit more. I'm going to come back and to behind you, then I'll come to you.
Good morning. My name is Pauline Sanderson. I'm with Synergy Home Care here in San Leandro. And we service many of the seniors in San Leandro. And I just had a question about, is there any plans to open the new San Leandro Senior Community Center soon? Can you comment on that?
I don't know if this qualifies as soon, but it's mid-April. And Kathy, do you have the exact date? April 4th.
Actually, the grand opening will be April 2nd, and then it will be open for service on April 4th.
Okay, so, and that, that's wonderful news, and it's a resource for the entire community, I'm sure that some of the resources are strained because of the budget situation, but as hopefully finances improve, and we'll be adding more resources there at the center.
I'm Judy Sidmeyer, and I have probably a little bit more of a strategic question for you. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. Governor Brown has just recently announced that one of his major initiatives is going to be transferring a lot of the financial responsibility out of the state and down to the counties. And obviously the logical next question is, what are the counties going to do to the cities? And I would like to hear your perspective on this, because if we're in a situation where we're trying to do cost controls and also services that are going to be, as Jim was mentioning regarding the outsourcing of police departments, we have to know that the counties are going to be getting real tight on their funding, or in scrutinizing how and where they will take on other responsibilities. But they will also have more funds. Could you give us your perspective on what you see the implications are to the cities and in your efforts, or are there implications to that?
At the outset, I am absolutely certain there's going to be implications to the cities. How it will actually play out, I'm waiting for the governor to release his budget, which will be probably, I guess, next week. So right now we're getting press reports of sort of the previewing the concepts, but we don't have the nuts and bolts yet. So I'm not in a position to comment specifically. I mean, no, I think counties are kind of vassals of the state in many ways, more than even cities. I mean, cities have streams of revenue that the state has tremendous influence over, but they're still, like utility users fees, the city collects and stays, but property tax revenue, that's about a quarter of San Leandro's revenue. How the property tax gets divided up is determined at the state level. Sales tax, that's about another quarter of the city's revenue. That also is largely controlled by the state. So we are heavily influenced by what happens at the state level, but counties even more, because counties' budgets come largely from the state, is my understanding. And it's interesting, I think the concept of moving services, moving greater fiscal responsibility to the local level is a sound one, because there's too much of a concentration of power in Sacramento, in my opinion. And we're separating our political leadership from the people to too great of a degree, and allowing special interests then they dominate Sacramento. However, it's one thing to say we're going to shift responsibility, but then are you actually going to shift the funding when the state budget used to be $105, $110 billion a year, and now it's around 80. So it's a huge drop. So you could say, okay, you're going to provide all social services now, counties, but we're going to give you 75% on the dollars to what the state was, using to provide it. I don't know how it's going to play out. It's going to be a very interesting time, and I think, and what effect will the state budget have on cities? I mean, that's one of my great questions. And if, we're going to know in a matter of a week or so, we'll have a much better idea. But I hope they're not blowing a boom on the cities.
Well, that's been my main, when I heard it, I thought, this is absolutely going to flow down. That's the way things work. However, as you indicated earlier, sometimes government moves at glacial speed, and I have to agree with you. However, if these changes are being made, and we're setting plans in place for the way things have been, we could be at real risk of losing opportunities to better position ourselves as a city and in getting some support and enhanced involvement with the county level, which now seems like it will be much more of a power source.
Yeah, and where the money goes comes power.
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, we do have good relations on the county level, and we'll just have to maintain those relations and deepen them as we move forward. Well, you already have one, so maybe at the tail end. Do we have a question over on this side, a little farther back? Sure. Why don't you, since you're farther back, why don't you just shout it out?
I'll second project. Mike McGuire had one of those experiences we've all had over at BART the other day with having a lot of trouble finding a parking space to get to, in my case, a job interview, and ended up leaving it at home and walking. And so I'm wondering if your position has changed from Mayor Santos's position on not seeking a parking garage built at BART, especially now that they're going to be charging us to park there anyway.
Well, the BART parking is within the TOD plan for the area, and the plan is, where the parking garage, I guess, across from BART, or the parking lot, next to the St. Leandro's Church, the elementary school. The plan for that is for that to become a multi-unit housing project. And for that parking, then for a new multi-story garage to be built over on land closer to the BART station itself. I don't think, though, that my understanding, though, is there's not going to be an increase in the number of parking spaces. We're still going to have the same amount. So those are the plans in the works. And I don't know if I'm answering your question. It's the bottom line.
Well, my question is, Mayor Santos was outright opposed to building a new garage.
Okay, well,
And I'm wondering if you're outright opposed as
no. I mean, I want BART to go ahead and build the garage that they're planning on building. And actually, I'm meeting next week with the BART director for our area. We actually have two that cover San Leandro, but the main one, his name is Bob Franklin. And, feel free to contact him. Go to the BART website and get his email and send him a message. He's very responsive. When it comes to government, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, at all levels. And so, in the BART districts are very large. So, if you have people up in Rockridge complaining all the time about the condition of their station, well, that station gets cleaned. But if you have people in San Leandro, like once or twice a year, make a complaint, it doesn't quite happen as much. And, so I encourage you, whether it's to the county supervisors, to our BART, we have different levels of government that play a role in San Leandro. Caltrans, in terms of keeping the freeway exits clean, and the litter that we see there, and the bushes. You drive into San Leandro on 580, come onto Estudillo, and it's like, it's all raggedy. I mean, that's something I'm going to raise with our state representatives. But it also helps for you to speak out too, because the city, there's certain areas where the city does not have direct control over. I've taken your question and changed the answer in some ways, but I'm just telling you something I feel strongly about, because it's everybody can be involved. We can all be engaged. We can all try to make government more responsive to us. I believe firmly in that.
Can I just put a little quick addendum on that? And that's that if you get there by 7:45, you're fine. If you have to do anything midday, you're more or less screwed. And I'm all for, if we had free, fast, frequent mass transit to the BART station from anywhere in town, which we don't, it would, I'd be perfectly happy not to drive there. But we need either more parking or better mass transit access.
Okay, thank you. I'll come over here. Anything back here?
Me?
You or a person,
right.
gentleman next to you?
I tell you something. You need a for avenue, you just have to go up the street, back and forth, and ticket the people who don't stop at stop sign, don't stop for me, they're crossing the street. I can tell you, I came because I walked every day through the city. I came from East 136, go up to Assumption Church and to the Benedict Drive and down over here. I saw at least 28 people. They didn't stop at anything. They just went. They went through the red light. If we enforce a little bit, we can get some revenue and be safer to work for us too. You know, it's kind of ridiculous. The guy doesn't even stop. Doesn't stop on Hollywood stop or whatever you're talking. No.
You're duly noted, you're not the first person to say that to me, and I'm sure to the rest of the city council, and it's. And I think as we go forward and looking at some of the policing issues, we have a new police chief coming into town. Her swearing-in ceremony is next Monday. Is that correct? That's something I can raise with her in conversation. I'm going to go to the back, and then I'll come back to you next. Yes.
Hi, Mike Ravala. I'd like to bring up the sound wall that was put up over on 580. And for some reason, I don't think there was an adequate public response period held on that. And the way that the engineering designs were, that there was a wall on one side of the freeway for a large segment across from Estadio Estates, where there's no wall on the other side. And I believe that the board or the city council was involved in this. I'm not sure who was pushing it or exactly what all the politics were that were behind it. But we have a situation here where there was basically an unjust equity between people that live on one side that are protected by the wall and people on the other side that now actually have an increment in noise because of a sound wall being built and nothing on the other side to protect them. So somehow an opportunity was lost there, and I would like the city council to be able to look into that and see if somehow they could work with Caltrans and whoever other the agencies are that work on this to see if that piece of the missing wall, which basically there's a hole on 580 in the sound wall, could actually be looked at in place.
Okay. Mike, also fill out the card too. But Kathy, you want to add a specific comment on this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Those individual homeowners petitioned to not have the wall in their backyard.
That's what
and it was
I want
granted.
to say. I know
They asked, but they did not want the wall in their yard, and it was granted.
But this is there are no homeowners up against that wall. They're segregated by a business strip, so I don't think that's correct.
Okay, I'm not sure which strip you're
Mike,
talking
why don't
about,
you
but
follow up and give the exact location?
yeah, we can maybe look at a map or
address.
something and figure out what you're looking at. Thank you.
Okay, I promise to come back to you.
Yes, my name is Veronica Mendoza, and what I wanted to say is I don't think that you should carry the whole burden on your shoulders. I think I would like for you to challenge the citizens of San Leandro to do some extra work ourselves, and I think that there should be a challenge for more volunteerism, and we do have a lot of volunteers, but I think that you should that it would be useful to look and see where can you get free labor from all of us that are sitting here bitching about what's going on. And so that we can do our part, and you have a lot of retired people with great skills, and you also have a lot of people that anything from sweeping the streets to whatever. I would appreciate a look and see what can you get for free.
Okay.
We get nothing for free.
And I think there might be an underappreciation of the talent in San Leandro that exists here right now. And we should never doubt the ability of San Leandrons to take charge and address problems and get things done on our own without having to rely upon consultants or others, so to speak. So that point's very well taken. It's something to I will keep in mind as we move forward and talk to my colleagues on the council and staff as to what are the volunteer opportunities presently, how can we promote them more, how can we expand them. And that's something too, I think even with the new police chief, I'm interested in having that conversation about as well, because involving the public in crime prevention, I think is vital to making our community a safer community. Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill Redvogel, for those who don't know me, editor of San Leandro Patch. Quick plug, new online news site for San Leandro, sanleandro.patch.com. So this is maybe a little bit selfish, but hopefully other people would be interested as well. I appreciate that the city website is, fairly well updated on the front page of city government, but the police department is pretty out of date. I'm pretty sure the last press release on there is from last year, from earlier this year, and I think it would be great to have some crime alerts on there and a little bit more information for me as a journalist to find stuff and for the public. So.
And again, that one's duly noted, and I've already had a conversation with staff about the website, and and talking that through, and can also follow up with the new police chief about the police department's website. Communications is an ongoing challenge, particularly when in the face of budget cuts when you're losing staff. But it's absolutely vital, and it's no public agency can survive without the trust of the people it serves. It can't achieve its mission. And in my way, how you build trust, maintain trust, is operating transparently, speaking truthfully, and communicating. And so your communications have to be up to date and have to be accurate. So I'll look into that as well.
Well, just a quick thing. You mean you don't look for the police department press releases on Facebook? Because that's where they are.
Yeah,
the current ones.
But they're pretty
The police releases are on Facebook?
Yes.
Well, why are they on Facebook and not in more general?
Yeah.
Is that the city?
Well, the police department has a Facebook page, and there's also a police department section within the city website, and I don't think that they've been equally kept current, so to speak. How about over here? Anyone want to ask me a question? Martin, do you want to comment on anything or have a question?
I'd like to talk to you after the meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bob.
Now, the shoreline marina, would you support a vote on anything that's approved down there by the city council, by the people of San Leandro?
I support putting on the ballot in 2012 the development plan that is finally produced, so to speak. And that would be before the city council's vote on the final approval of it. So it would be an advisory vote by the community as to whether this plan is acceptable. And I assume then the city council would take that into account, obviously, or I certainly would, if it was rejected. I need to work on getting support amongst my council members for that. So, bear in mind, the mayor is one vote on a 7-member city council. And there are certain powers under the city charter that the mayor has to him or herself, such as public relations and communications. But when it comes to voting on policy issues, we're 7 equals. I have I have one vote. It's not like 1.5. It's not 2 votes. It's just 1. And I'm a member of the city council as well. And in turn, the model government we have here is a mayor, city council / city manager government. Unlike Oakland or San Francisco, where the mayor is really the executive power, and you have a strong mayor government. Most cities in California, including San Leandro, the day-to-day operations are run by the city manager. He or she is the chief administrative officer of our city. The mayor and the city council are only in charge, under at least our city charter as it exists right now, of hiring, firing the city manager, the city attorney, and the city clerk. All other positions, such as the police chief, are the hiring decision is within the power of the city manager. That's not to be a cop-out, but it is just to give you, to be realistic in that, what I may promise you just keep that in mind. That's what I will try to achieve, as opposed to me speaking on behalf of the city, particularly when we're talking about matters of policy that are in the future. Robert.
Yes, again, it kind of is a good segue in the sense that because the city administrator is leaving, we have to look at who is coming in and what are we going to pay them. And as the local paper pointed out, the current city administrator gets $202,000 a year plus health benefits. I think was it dental and all of the, and $450 a month for maintaining his car.
$350.
What are your what is your I think, and the other thing I think he was saying was it's 15% above the next highest paid employee in the city. I don't know why that's there, but some kind of ego thing that he has to get more. I guess I don't know, but I'm very concerned about that again in the perception as well as the actuality of dealing with the finances of the city.
Sure, and well, this will probably be like the least popular thing I'll say today, and that is you have to pay top people a good salary to make sure you have top people. And in the Bay Area, you know, our salaries are higher than anywhere else in the nation, pretty much. Cost of living is higher too, to an extent. I think, you know, it's a $70 to $80 million general fund the city has. Then there's all these additional funds which take us over $100 million. So I don't believe, you know, paying someone $200,000 or so is unreasonable given the expertise and the overall, you know, $100 million plus funds that person is reviewing. I want to get a dynamic leader though. I want to get our money's worth. I also want to you know, make sure that we're operating in a fiscally sustainable manner too. I'm not interested in having, you know, the highest paid city manager in the Bay Area. I don't buy that argument. I do buy the argument that you have to be within the ballpark, within a range. And San Leandro's pay is not outside. We're not on the very upper end. It's not uncommon for cities of our size for the manager to be getting about $200,000. Bear in mind, though, the articles don't necessarily always tell you the full amount because, you know, what's not listed there is the CalPERS contribution, which is cost by the city that is incurred, and so you add on, you know, tens of thousands of dollars more, and I want there to be transparency. I want us to, you know, both for my salary, for the councils, for the employees, to, you know, for you to know what you're getting, so we never have a bell-type situation here in San Leandro. You know, just in terms of appointment of the new city manager, we're going to be discussing that, we, the city council, at our next meeting, and start fleshing out the process. And I want the community to be involved in the process, and, you know, and I welcome your ideas on that. You know, like, what are the qualities that you want to see in the city manager? What are the factors that you want the city to emphasize in the hiring process? There is a role for the public in that, and I'd like your input on that as we move forward.
Mr. Mayor, on just what you said, it's like the dog chasing his tail, because all these salaries, as everybody knows, exponentially went up during the good old 90s or late 90s, and they're sitting there, but everything has gone down now. Even old age, Social Security, everything because of cost of value inflation, if you may, and yet we tolerate this ridiculous salary. You know, you said it's hard to get a good city manager for less than $200K. I don't believe that. Somebody has to put the metal to the fire and say, if we heat it long enough and well enough, we will be able to bend it backwards, and we have to do that.
I understand your position. Again, I'm not interested in, you know, chasing after the tail and like keep on ratcheting it up, ratcheting it up, ratcheting it up. I do though think that there's, you know, a minimum level that we need to be cognizant of, and whether it's, you know, we can debate what that dollar amount is, but we're also going to partially see what the marketplace has to say too when we go out and offer this position.
But it's very hard for the seniors in this town. We all live on somewhat of a fixed income, and to see these absurd salaries go up, and they're almost making as much money as the people sitting in Washington, D.C., who have turned the thing up on its head. So where are we going with it? Salary is not the game winner here. It doesn't prove that we will get positive results, which the system has proven itself on.
Okay.
Makes more than the governor of the state of California.
That's right.
He went out ahead.
Well, it's 9:30. But listen, I really, it's one thing to be on the campaign trail saying, "Oh, City Hall's got to do this." Well, now I am City Hall. But thank you so much for your input, and we'll be having more of these. Just check the San Leandro Times. We might do it. Not necessarily always Friday mornings this time. I want to maybe do one in the evening or one the weekend to allow folks that are working, outside of San Leandro but live here to be able to attend as well. So thanks a lot. And Kathy is a huge and wonderful resource. Please interact with her as you have issues that come up as well.
May I say, I think